Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Michigan Trail Report. I'm your host, Tom Funk. I am the author of 50 Hikes in Michigan's Upper Peninsula and 50 Hikes on the North Country Trail. And this is a report for the 6th of December, 2022. It's really great to be back talking trails with you all. So let's get underway. This podcast is brought to you by Gateway to Pictured Rocks, lodging in Germfask in the middle of nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Consider them for your base camp for your next Upper Peninsula adventure. Centrally located between Escanaba, Marquette, the Sioux, and St. Ignace. They are less than an hour from both ends of Pictured Rocks. Check them out at VRBO. Pull out a pencil, pull out a scrap piece of paper, write this down, vrbo.com/980761. All right, if you're new to this, basically I have about, 30 different topics, and I'll rotate in 10 or so of them into each podcast. In addition, I have about 5 or so that will always be part of the show. For example, the ever so popular Permit Report, and that will always be part of the show and will be near the end of the podcast. All right, Hike of the Week. How about a wilderness area? I don't think we've had a wilderness area yet on our Hike of the Week. But first, let us define wilderness. There are legal wildernesses as designated by our various governments, and then there are biological wildernesses. So, I'll just highlight today a legal wilderness, which have boundaries set by man and are off limits to mechanized travel or even using machines like chainsaws in trail maintenance. And you'll frequently hear it is a place where a man is a visitor. There are federal wilderness areas as part of national forests and national parks in Michigan, and there are even some state-designated wildernesses as well. Have you heard of the Big Island Lake Wilderness? It is in the western unit of the Hiawatha National Forest near the burb of Steuben, near M94 north of Manistee. Big Island Wilderness has 23 lakes ranging in size from 5 to 149 acres. And it is home to ducks, loons, and all kinds of birds, and great canoeing opportunities. This area was logged off between the 1890s and 1930s, so you can still find old stumps scattered amongst the second growth. But it has recovered much of its appearance of the early forest with large trees and a closed canopy. This is a small wilderness. It's about 5,000 acres or so in size, and you may hear some outside sounds that may be coming in from the nearby roads. The primary access to this area is by canoe, which you can use your canoe on the numerous lakes in the area. The terrain is pretty flat. The trails are pretty limited to just portage routes. So hikers may find off-trail hiking challenging due to all the brush. So this is a popular fishing place, and the state has special regulations. One of the lakes, the Twilight Lake, provides a trout fishery. And the snowpack can average 4 feet in depth in the middle of the winter, which attracts snowshoers and cross-country skiers. And when the snow melts, it is a buggy place until late June. Find out more, wilderness.net, and then search for Big Island Lake Wilderness. Okay, trail conditions. There is a swath of snow that hit the far western UP, and there's, again, 8 to 12 inches of snow on the ground, kind of the Porkies area. And in general, there is snow on the ground west of the line drawn between Ishpeming and Iron Mountain. The northwest Lower Peninsula and eastern UP, as of last time I checked on Sunday, has a dusting of snow on the ground. And your snowmobile trails, they are officially quote-unquote open, but contact the trail club to see if they are actually ready to be used. Probably not in the Eastern UP, possibly in the Western UP, and definitely not in the Lower Peninsula. All right, we had a discussion on the Tom's Tales page about the Big Five. And you're like, well, what's the Big Five? Well, if you go to Africa and go on safari, they talk about seeing the Big Five animals. And those animals, if you go on safari in Africa, are the black rhinoceros, the water buffalo, the African lion, the leopard, and the African elephant. Myself, I've been to Tanzania, Kenya, and South Africa, and I've seen all these animals in the wild. And it is a big deal if you see all five because it is pretty hard to do so. So the question was posed, what are Michigan's Big Five? So I bring this up because I discussed in last week's podcast your best strategy to find a moose. And other people were asking about seeing some other big animals. So I'm like, oh, well, let's kind of talk about what are the Big Five then. Let's kind of, use that as a comparison. So, well, what are your Big Five animals in Michigan? Well, a moose. Let's start with that. They're definitely large, so we'll start there. How about elk? How about black bear? And, would you want to throw in a large bird like bald eagle? And let's not forget the wolf, and someone even mentioned cougar. So go over to the Tom's Tales page and tell us what you think. In my opinion, in order, the largest wild animals from easiest to hardest to find are white-tailed deer, elk, black bear, moose, and wolf. And I'll mention the cougar for, it's relatively new return to Michigan, and we'll put that in sixth place. And this is based on my personal experience as a wildlife biologist and having been asked by others for years and years where they could see these various animals and their success in finding them. For example, I had 50,000 plus customers at one of my outfitting outlets in the Upper Peninsula. Everybody asked to see moose. I only know one person that ever took my advice and actually saw a moose. And others may have seen it and didn't tell me, but I only had one person come back and say, hey, thanks for the advice. So moose are pretty hard to find. So go ahead, comment here on the podcast or go over to the Tom's Tales page and let us know what you think. All right, skills test. Hey, I was poking around on the backpacker.com website and clicked on the Learn tab, and it brought me over to a page on the Outside Magazine website. First of all, when did that happen? Anyway, there are quite a few web tutorials on the site that cover cooking to gear repair and my favorite topic, navigation. Now, I used to be a long-time print subscriber to Backpacker Magazine up to maybe 5 years ago, as my skill level was well beyond the audience that they were then writing towards. So then to answer my question above, how did Backpacker and Outside get together? Well, Outside Magazine bought Backpacker Magazine in 2021, and in 2022, Outside took the entire Backpacker Magazine digital. It is now mostly gear reviews and tutorials with some news reporting. And for $5 a month, you can join Outside Plus and have online access to Backpacker, Outside, and their other publications like Ski and Trail Runner. There is some free content there, but apparently you can pay for all the other content for $5 a month. So my guess is they're slowly going to reduce the free content to the point where you have to become a subscriber. So if you have time, go ahead and check it out. What you're reading? How about a book that is currently out of print? A book that I'll tell you about that revolutionized hiking in Michigan. Have you ever heard of the Trail Atlas of Michigan by Dennis Hansen? Yes, that very large book that weighs, seems like it weighs 10 pounds. It was originally published in 1988, and this behemoth of a book has seen 2 more editions and numerous reprints. The last reprint that I can find was in 2002. It started at 589 pages, and if that isn't overwhelming enough, the last edition was darn near 800 pages. So in order to cram as many trails as possible, the book has a simple template with a hand-drawn map and bulleted information. Later editions tell you which page in your DeLorme Atlas to find your hike. What Dennis did, that was brilliant because I wrote the page numbers of each hike into my DeLorme Atlas, and I even highlighted them in the Atlas. And by doing that, well, if you wonder why I've done so many different hikes, it is because of the work Dennis put into his book and then me putting them into the Atlas. Today, with AllTrails, Avenza, etc., these low-tech things you guys call books have kind of fallen to the wayside. But I'm telling you, if you buy one guide to Michigan Trails, don't buy my book, buy his book. And since it is out of print, they're kind of tough to find, but there's this really cool website. If you're a book person and you don't know about bookfinder.com, check it out. So go to bookfinder.com, then enter Trail Atlas Michigan Hansen, Hansen, into the search engine, and you'll find quite a few out there for sale. Yeah, it's a cool book and looks cool on your bookshelf. All right, this weekend, Michigan's Facebook hiking group pages. On the Michigan Hiking and Backpacking page, I saw that Jim Dufresne is still having a sale at MichiganTrailMaps.com. There are a bunch of events at some of these pages. West Michigan Hiking and Backpacking still has their Timber Creek Base Camp hiking trip. It looks like it's taking place this weekend. So, hey, never mind that one. Let's delete that one out. Delete. There you go. That's why I should review my notes before I start talking on the air. Let's see. Northern Michigan Hiking and Backpacking has a December 10th to 11th Jordan River Pathway backpacking trip, and then there's a December 30th New Year's cabin trip. Scrolling down, let's see, nothing new on the Trail Angels. In the hiking, the North Country Trail and the Eastern UP group page, the one I highlighted last week, holy cow, you guys, they got all kinds of events, all kinds of them. So, let's quickly run through these. Saturday, December 10th, beginning to hike a lot like Christmas. That's in Rudyard. It starts at 10 a.m. January 1st, first hike on the 1st. That takes place out of Eckerman, 2 p.m. January 14th, hike the Hiawatha and stomp the park. That is off of Brevoort Lake Road, and that starts at noon. January 28th, Paradise Winter Hike, Tequamanon Falls State Park, Rivermouth area, 10 a.m. And gosh, there's more hikes on February 11th and March 11th, which I will tell you about in a future podcast. The new group page for the week is the North Country Trail Community group page. Now, there are a bunch of different North Country Trail group pages out there, but this one is North Country Trail Community. So write that down in the dust on your dashboard and go check that one out. This is a group page managed by the North Country Trail Association. And a question was posed there recently. How come there isn't a guidebook to the trail? Well, actually, there are several. And I made a web tutorial on those books that you can see over at my YouTube channel. But here's the deal. I did some quick math, and my two books that I wrote incurred well over 10,000 hours of work, from actually hiking the trails to doing the background research, to talking to people, to doing recon. Then there's the dealing with the editors, the typing, the editing again, dealing with the publisher. My 50 hikes in the Upper Peninsula book took 10 years from start to finish, and my North Country Trail guidebook was darn near 20 years. And of course, I was doing this not nonstop, but I had a full-time job and family, everything. But there is an incredible amount of work. And my brain hurts when I think about writing an entire guidebook to a 4,000, 600-mile trail. And the North Country Trail actually tried doing this about 12 years ago. I actually bid on the project, and I'm telling you, the amount of money they were going to pay us to write the guidebook to the entire trail, it was about 20% of what it would actually cost. I mean, it would be a full-time job. So with writing a guidebook, a print guidebook, especially for a hiking trail, you have to consider that the trail changes literally every week somewhere on that 4,600-mile stretch. There's a closure, a reroute, a new segment, a detour, etc. And if you put the guidebook into a print format, as I did, it is out of date the moment it hits the shelves. And if it was electronic, it'd still be darn near a full-time job updating the maps and text, verifying and ground truthing everything. And how much information do you want to put into a guidebook? The original manuscript for the North Country Trail guidebook was over 1,000 pages. I had information about post offices, groceries, banks, medical care, transportation, outfitters. My publisher made me cut all that. It's pretty much bare bones, and frankly, I'm not too happy about that. And I thought about having a separate guidebook for all the services along the trail. But there is what they call a data book. And data books exist for like the Appalachian Trail, which kind of is a blow-by-blow, where you can find stuff. And there is actually one underway. But again, that information changes constantly too. So these guidebooks, my guidebook, and others like the ones that Jim Dufresne wrote, should only be used, especially when you're hiking the North Country Trail. They should only be used to get a general feel and help you plan for hiking the trail and not be used for navigation. The best resource for navigation is the North Country Trail website and their downloadable maps and trail planner. Your best source for on-the-ground intelligence is reaching out to the local chapter for lodging info, services, etc. So, writing a book, it's a huge job. It is not easy. Okay, events. Outdoorama, February 21st to 23rd in Novi. We still have the Quiet Water Adventure Symposium on Saturday, March 4th at Michigan State University, and Canoecopia, March 10th through the 12th, Madison, Wisconsin. If you've never heard of Canoecopia, Google it. It's a pretty cool event. Okay, hot topic. Oh man, Outdoor Magazine posted a thinly guised article about backpacking with more weight than you need. Now, I'm a hike your own hike kind of guy. Hey, if you want to hike with 100 pounds of canned goods, and I've seen that before, be my guest. I just don't want to be the guy calling search and rescue or, to litter you out of the woods. Weight, of course, has its advantages. You have more stuff, more food, more clothes, more bourbon. But weight has its negative consequences as well. So there's a blogger that I follow, and it's called Halfway Anywhere, and he's at halfwayanywhere.com. He conducts an intensive survey of Pacific Crest Trail hikers. And he finds that the average pack volume is 55 liters. And the vast majority of hikers with a pack larger than 65 liters do not finish the trail. Some years it's 0. So the data is there to show you that weight does have a negative consequence. In my experience, weight slows you down. It makes you less maneuverable. It takes you longer to break camp. And speaking from experience, it can cause injury. Joints, backs, and of course, things like shoulders, like a torn rotator cuff. And that is exactly what I'm dealing with right now. And I got this injury from putting on my day pack, and I tore my left rotator cuff. Doctor said it looks like I was in a car accident. It's so messed up. There's 4 muscles in your rotator cuff. I have a 90% tear on one and a 40% tear on the other. And my pack at the time probably weighed 15 pounds. I attribute these tears to 40 plus years of carrying a backpack and throwing it over my left shoulder first. Imagine if it weighed 50 pounds. Anyways, hike your own hike, but just be aware of the positives and negative consequences of carrying more weight. All right, I think it is time. The permit report. All right, Pictured Rocks. Ooh, are you guys chomping at the bit? January 1st for the 2023 season. And make sure you have 3 different itineraries because that website's going to be hot and heavy. And that's recreation.gov. And I look forward to that opening up in January. Grand Island reservations update. Grand Island, you can make a reservation up to 6 months from today's date. So that means right now through Memorial Day and early June. And keep in mind that the campsites on Grand Island, they open on the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. So there's a lot of availability. It seems like there's more campsites this year that are walk-up only. And the only one I found that was full was Shelter Ridge. And if I remember correctly, last year the Forest Service would require reservations on the busier days and weekends, and the sites would be walk-up on the slower days. So if you're planning a trip, I would constantly check that site. So if you go on there today and says, oh, it's just walk-up now, there's nothing to say that they won't change it to reservation at a future date. So, plan and prepare. State park campgrounds, backcountry camping sites are open for registration through May, which includes Memorial Day weekend. Keep in mind, 6 months out, so they're actually into early June. Tahquamenon Falls State Park Memorial Day weekend is only 15% full for regular campsites. Fort Custer Recreation Area, 85% full for Memorial Day weekend, and Hartwick Pines is 95% full. So probably what I'll do is I'll pick some random state park campgrounds to tell you how full they are on certain weekends, and continue the backcountry updates as well. Like Porcupine Mountains Backcountry, at last check, 21 of the 66 backcountry sites were taken for the Memorial Day weekend. So that's about a third. So you better get on it if you want to hike on Memorial Day weekend in the Porkies. Craig Lake backcountry sites, they're all still available through Memorial Day weekend. And again, Tahquamenon Falls State Park backcountry sites, call the park to see how they want you to arrange for their backcountry permits. And snowmobile trails are officially open, but contact your local trail maintenance club to see if they are usable. So there you go. There is your trail report. All right, weather forecast. Hey, I called it. Get pretty good at this weather stuff. We got a melt through all but the western UP, but how long will it last? So there is a light dusting in the eastern UP and northwestern part of the lower peninsula. Not enough to snowshoe. There is, like I said, west of Marquette, there is snow on the ground in some places, enough to snowshoe. So, looking at the forecast in Marquette, highs are going to be right around freezing and lows into the teens again. But more snow is on the way for later in the week. And Grand Rapids, temperatures in the 30s and low 40s. And the next chance of snow is this coming weekend. So there's no snow on the ground in Grand Rapids right now. And again, I will be home in Michigan a week from today. I have been threatening to do a presentation and hike. No one back home has gotten their act together enough to be able to pull something together. So what will likely happen is I will announce a hike or a get-together on the Tom Trails Tales and Tom Funksworthy Adventures Facebook pages. So be sure to follow those pages. Ooh, I'm starting to hear bumper music come in. And again, thank you to Adam Main. This is his song Joy Modulator off his Elevator Pitches album. Thanks, Adam, for providing the music. Thanks again to our sponsor, Gateway to Pictured Rocks. And if you're interested in sponsoring a show, check out our Patreon account. Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. And that is by Ed Visters. Again, thank you for joining us. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Tom's Trail Tales, which covers the Great Lakes. Tom's Worldly Adventures, which covers the rest of the planet. TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, Tom's Worldly Adventures. And I put my transcripts on my Substack, thomasfunk.substack.com. Do you have an All Trails account? Follow me, Thomas Funk. And that Patreon account again is patreon.com/TomFunk. All right, thanks again for joining me. Thanks again for my sponsors. And we will see you next week.